I've been sitting here so long for you to hear my song, and all you want to know is, am I on the radio? Who's the biggest star I've seen? And what's my favorite scene? And if I get the job, would I sing on Mars? Yes, sir, I would sing on Mars. I'd play upon a star. I'd sing songs of the sun. And when my job was done, I would say I love you so. I'd like to sing one more, just for all young lovers, for the road. Tell me, sir, yeah, just how far I need to go to be a star. I have known my highs and lows. I've worked on every show. I've played in every town and brought some houses down, but critics never notice me. I'm not a star, you see, and yet I give my heart to every part. I would stand for hours and hours. I've walked through some showers with my dancing shoes and my dreams and views. I walk upon an empty stage with one light on my face, to be told, don't phone us, we'll phone you. Tell me, sir, yeah, just how far I need to go to be a star, to be a star. Every day the same old scene, the same old happenings, 100 miles of shores, and yet no place to go. And when your luck is all run out, you're asked to take a bow. You've just stolen the show, but now you're on your own. Yes, sir, I would sing on Mars. My dream scene is me a star, me a star, me a star. I am a star. Thank you.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Be My Guest with me, Mary Honan. And I'm here today. I have to confess to being quite nervous because they always say don't meet your musical heroes or any heroes in life, but I've spoken to Tommy before, and he's every bit as nice to interview as he is as a singer, and that's saying a whole lot. Hello, Tommy Fleming.
Hello, Mary. How are you? Don't be nervous. We're only having a chat. It's all new age. I'm as bad as anybody when it comes to technology. In fact, I'm a dinosaur when it comes to it. But it's a strange time for everybody, and we just have to, I suppose, batten down the hatches and get on with it.
Go with the flow, so to speak. I mean, I think if the only good thing that came out of it was that it forced us into trying to use technology in a different way. I mean, I'm thinking of you go out and about now in your Jeep and you sing for people and you entertain them. You'd never have thought of that before this.
I do.
Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm only gone a week. So how are you all? Hope everything is going good for everybody, and we're getting back to normal. There's the two pooches. We attempted to go for a run earlier, just now actually, but between the rain and everything else, and to be honest, I embraced my pints of Heineken a little too enthusiastically last night, so a little bit delicate today. So anyway, there's the rain again. So today, I said I'd give you a song, so I'm going to give you a song, one of my favourites, and I started singing this when I was 18. I first sang this when I was 18, and I've been singing it ever since, so it's quite a long time with me. This is Bright Blue Rose. Have a great weekend, everyone, and I'll check back in periodically and with you, and keep safe, everybody, and I'll see you soon, okay? Here we go. All right, Ted Jones. I skimmed across black water without one submerging onto the banks of an urban morning that hunger the first light, much more than the mountains ever do. And she, like a ghost beside me, goes down with the ease of a dolphin and emerges unlearned, unshamed, unharmed. For she's a perfect creature, natural in every feature, and I am the geek with the alchemist on. For all of you who must discover, for all who seek to understand, for having left the path of others, and you find a very special hand, and it is a holy thing, and it is a precious time, and it is the only way. Forget-me-nots among the snow, it's always been, and so it goes. To ponder is death, and is life eternally. Must discover, for all who seek to understand, for having left the path of others, and you find a very special hand, and it is a holy thing, and it is a precious time, and it is the only way. Forget-me-nots and so it goes, to ponder his death and his life eternally. One bright blue rose outlives all those 2,000 years, and still it grows, to ponder his death and his life eternally. Now, there's Bright Blue Rose. There's Jody. Teddy's sulking because... Ted, come on, say hello. Ted. He's sulking because we didn't do a proper run today. Yeah, I know it's my fault. Anyway, folks, have a great weekend. And I'll check back in next week, I guess, or in a few days' time. Stay safe. Thanks again, as always. Bye. No, it wasn't. It was kind of... What started that was the clear out of the office, and we found all the backing tracks. And then Tina rang me one day. She was driving my Jeep, and she rang me. Well, actually, a friend of ours rang all of us, and we were all on a group video call. And I made a joke and said it looked like she was doing carpool karaoke with James Corden.
Yeah,
and then the next day I was out for a run with the two pooches, and it just gave me an idea that maybe do something from the car, and because everybody's doing home concerts and they're just trying to keep out there and keep relevant and keep current, I suppose. And I just said, I would tell with it, I'm in the car and I'm on my way for a run, so I just check in and say hello. And I thought, to be honest, I thought it would only go on about maybe 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. And I ended up doing 100 days. I finished the 26th of
it's
June.
extremely popular. It was extremely popular.
It was great. It was, do you know what? It was brilliant for me because it gave me purpose. It gave me, when I got up, I had to do it. I couldn't just have the liberty of lying on the couch thinking it was Christmas for 3 months. And it's a worrying time. It still is very worrying. And I'm still going to check in and do it. I'm still going to check in every now. I might even do one tomorrow, actually. Yeah. I was learning a song this morning. So it's making me kind of learn lyrics. It's making me kind of keep singing and not get lazy. Not that one thing I don't think I could ever be accused of is lazy.
No.
But
are you much gardening? Because I know that the last time I spoke to you, you said you'd love to just be sitting and just working in your garden.
I've been working in it all summer. I've been working in it since March, April, and it looks great. I'm very proud of it. I'll be honest with you. We've our own vegetables, we've our own strawberries, potatoes. That we won't have them ready until September, October. Tina's got the vegetables. I'm kind of doing the garden itself, and I'm loving it. But I'm worried because. Yeah, I don't know when are we going to get back on a stage, and the government don't seem to be addressing us as artists as just.
And I saw your article. I saw your article that you put up on Facebook, and I was going to talk to you about it. So we might as well talk about it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Opinion on this and how it's affecting artists.
I understand in the beginning that nobody knew. This is all very new to everybody. This pandemic is unprecedented in my lifetime, in most people's lifetimes. And I mean, we were the first to lose our jobs.
Yeah.
We were the first to be taken off a stage. The theatre doors closed, the venue doors closed, wherever it was. And nobody in power or nobody in connections or anything has come back to us to say, this is what we can do. I think what I'm trying to say is we have always been the ones that are the first to be called upon. And I'm still getting emails to support this and support that and support the other. And nobody's supporting us. Nobody's coming back to us. This time we need people's help, Yeah,
it's amazing how many people, I'm not just saying it now, but how many people have actually complained about the fact that, say, national broadcasters aren't playing as many Irish women's music.
Yeah.
And there seems I've seen a lot of posts now up on Facebook about Irish artists not getting the coverage on the mainstream medias and all that. And I suppose that's what we've been doing, is trying to give a voice to Irish artists. We've had a lot now. Emily Conway has been on, and my friends of mine who are in the music industry and have been completely decimated in the UK. And you know, I mean, they're on their last legs, and they just don't know what to do. And I suppose we're hoping that something like this will give a voice to people and let people know that you still exist in some way. You know, I know everyone is going to know Tommy Fleming exists. You're not easily forgotten about Tommy, but there are other artists. You can laugh all you like. It's a fact.
I'm laughing about the way you say. I don't look at it like that. I look at it, we're all in this together. So it doesn't matter if it's Mick that plays in the local pub three nights a week, or me who does a tour in the bigger theatres. It doesn't matter how many you play to or how often you do it. We all do the same job. You know, as my father, God rest him, used to say, we all get up in the morning and put our trousers on one leg at a time. You know, and
yeah.
So nobody's better than anybody else, and nobody's worse than anybody else. Do you know what I mean? So we're all in this together. So yeah,
some poor people are only starting off. They were just about getting their careers, and friends of mine the same, just getting their careers off the ground, and suddenly and singing in pubs here, there, and everywhere. Beautiful singers that worked with me in Bunratty Castle, and just getting their careers, and now suddenly everything's gone.
Everything's gone. And you know, I seen a post from on social media the other day from a lad that's in the business a good while and quite successful, and now he has to work as a courier because he has to pay the loans on his vehicles. You know, and like, I know needs must and cut your cloth and all of that, but this is different. This is we're kind of just left out to sea. And it's like, you know, nobody's telling us when the theatres are going to open. You know, like I looked at last weekend, and, you know, Dame Lane, Temple Bar, all jammed with people. Now, I know that's not the government's fault, but when you think that can happen, and yet the Olympia Theatre, which I've played in hundreds of times, 100 meters up the road from where they were all gathering, is still in darkness.
The whole thing is not making sense to me, as from a human point of view. It's not making sense how you can you know, you can have even to the point of churches, you know, 50 inside in a church or 50 inside in a cathedral, depending on the size. I mean, you played at Knock Basilica, that would hold thousands, wouldn't it?
When I did it, it was 5,200 or something, which is great, and that was brilliant.
There's only 50 allowed into it.
Yeah, but it's not even that. I suppose it's like for like, really, in that, you know, like they can put 250 plus people on an airplane with masks for 3 hours, but they can't put them into a theatre for 2 hours.
It's not making sense. None of it is making sense. I mean, I was listening there today on the radio, and they said that anyone Irish or that coming back to Ireland has to quarantine for 2 weeks, self-quarantine for 2 weeks, and then they're okay, basically. So we're in the country, and we've been quarantining for months, and yet you can't go out, or you can't get back to work. In your case, you can't get back into the.
It's extremely scary in that, you know, at the end of the day, even if you're getting your COVID payment, whatever it may be, 200 and whatever, or 300 and whatever, you still, when the mortgage break finishes for people, how can they pay mortgages out of €350? Or if they're not even getting that, how are they supposed to pay them full stop if they can't work? And it's not our fault that we can't work.
Yeah, and as well as that, a thing now, one of my colleagues here worked in the motor, the motor vehicle place in Shannon, and with the Department of Transport. And they didn't take away, they didn't stop you having to pay for the tax in your car, even though they told you couldn't get into your car. And
Yeah.
you couldn't drive. You couldn't
drive anymore. You can't drive any more than 2 kilometers initially, and then 5.
And yet they didn't stop. You still had to pay for the motor tax, even though
like
sitting in your
how is people, the artists, especially musicians, singers, dancers, actors, managers, road crew, how are they supposed to pay for their mortgages, their life insurance, their VHI, their food on the table for their families? Nobody has not that I know of, nobody has come back in government to say that we can be extended, and I'm not looking for the government to hand me a wad of cash and say, here you go. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some definition. I'm looking for, can a theatre open? How many people can we go into a theatre? If a theatre opens only at half capacity, do we have to pay full rental? There's all of these questions have to be answered, and nobody seems to be throwing any lifeline to us whatsoever.
And it's the same with, I finally went to the hairdresser the other day, and he was saying to me that he has a few premises in Limerick, and yet his landlord, they won't even speak to him. And and it's a big premises, there's lots of shops, it's a centre that he's in, and they will not even answer his phone call or anyone's phone call. They just won't cut the rent. And yet there was nobody in there for 3 months.
Like initially when all this started, I understood nobody really knew what the hell was going on. Everybody was in the same boat, including the higher powers. We're now almost 4 months down the road. And I just get this awful feeling that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
I've had that feeling from day one. I mean, I just think they're coming out and they're making speeches, and I think they're just going with the flow, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to them. They're getting paid anyway.
Well, they're not taking any cuts.
No, they're not taking anything. They're losing out on nothing. Most of my friends are all musicians and singers. Mick Hanley was on with me a couple of weeks ago.
Mick's a lovely man. Yeah.
He is. And he said exactly the same thing. Emily Conway, the same thing. They don't know when or what's happening with their careers, what they can do, when they can actually perform.
On the first day of January 1892, they opened Ellis Island and they let the people through. And the first to cross the threshold of that isle of hope and tears was Annie Moore from Ireland, who was all of 15 years. Isle of hope, isle of tears, isle of freedom, isle of fears. But it's not the isle I've left behind. That isle of hunger, isle of pain, isle you never see again. But the isle of hope, they closed down Ellis Island in 1943. 17 million people had come there for sanctuary. And in springtime when I came here and I stepped onto its piers, I thought of how it must have felt when you're only 15 years. I'd have hope, I'd have tears, I'd have freedom, I'd have fears, but it's not the I'd I've left behind. That I'd have hunger, I'd have pain, I'd never see again, but the Isle of Hope is always on your mind. Isle of Hope, Isle of tears, Isle of freedom, Isle of fears, but it's not the Isle is left behind. That Isle of hunger, Isle of pain, I'll you never see again, but the Isle of Hope is always on your mind. Yes, the Isle of Hope is always on your mind. Thank you. Thanks a million. I'm going to do.
I mean, I'm looking there at the back of I have you post your tour, I think it's that way. Your tour in 2020. Is
Yeah.
that go ahead?
That's 20 is gone. I finished the Irish tour. Luckily, I finished on the 1st of March in Ireland. And I finished Australia in December of 19.
Yeah.
The UK was cancelled, and the European leg of it was cancelled in October. So I've lost all of that, and I'm not the only one. So I'm not whinging. I'm not crying about it. I'm sorry that it has happened, but I'm not the only one it's happened to. But all I'm saying is, if I really wish we had some indication, some light at the end of a very dark tunnel for us. And at the moment, the only light we see is the train coming in the opposite direction, and
All you want is a bit of certainty. All you want is to be told, Christmas now, you can start opening up, or you can start having a show, but you can't have as many inside in the theatre, or you can have open air concerts. Or whatever.
Some artists like myself aren't exactly. It's not the dance thing. We're not that. It's our concerts are very much indoor and sit down. Whereas you've got the artists that do the dancing and the dance scene, and fair play to them. Hopefully, they'll get a chance to do that with it. But what I'm trying to say is, I mean, are we waiting for a vaccine for our job to be given back to us? And even then, even if venues open to full capacity tomorrow morning, how the hell can we all jump in at the same time trying to, it'll be a melee. And, like my tour in Australia has been moved from May and June of 21 now to August 22. So, because it can take anything up to 2-3 years to set up an overseas tour. So it can't.
And I mean, as you quite rightly said in your post, you're all going to be fighting for the same background crew and the same camera crew and the same sound people. Everyone is going to want the same people at the same time. So, it could take years because of this backfall of people waiting for the same few people that deal with you on a consistent basis.
Absolutely. And like what worries me is, and I'll be honest with you, Mary, what has worried me to this point is Tina and I have discussed early retirement at this point for me, to see, which I think annoys me more than anything, that I would be forced into retirement. And that's kind of where we're at the moment.
I can't believe that would happen, Tommy. I can't, I mean, this is just, it's immoral actually, to be honest with you, what's happening, because people are just being left in limbo.
Every other business has been discussed, has been brought around. There's no, like even, and look, I think what's really annoying me and kind of pissing me off, and sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that.
Stay away.
What really is getting to me at this point is we're still getting the emails and the phone calls about, will I do a video for charity? Will I do this charity? Will I do that charity? Yeah. I would love to, but right now we're the ones in need of help. And who's doing the videos for us? Why are we the ones always that are in the forefront?
It's always been the case. Creative people have always, especially in Ireland, it's sad to say, I think, when I was an entertainer in Bunratty for 14 years, but I was also an artist. And if I was drawing anything and somebody said, "Oh, Mary, will you draw something like that?" My mother's attitude was, and they'd say, "How much do you want for it?" "Oh, she doesn't want anything. Sure, she loves it." And I do think that there's an element of that with, generally all over the world, that people think, oh, artists are talented and we're going to get them to be able to do that for us, and they'll be delighted to be out there singing, and they'll be delighted to be dancing for this. And I think there's an element of that.
There's an element of that, very much so, and that has always been there. And there's an element of you could very easily be a very busy fool, and you can't.
And I've been a very busy fool for many years.
So, I mean, you have to make a living as well. Bills have to be paid, and who pays your bills? But look, I'm not going to get down on that now, and I've kind of said my piece on it, and I've said it to a few people. But I just hope that other artists will kind of jump in behind on this and go, actually, yeah, let's create a bit of noise here.
Is there any way you could create, a virtual concert?
Well,
that people have to subscribe to in order to actually watch the concert, and that it would come from different.
We've been looking at that for a while, and the problem we're running into is the platforms that you subscribe to take 40%. So you can't charge really any more than €15 per ticket, because people are sitting at home looking at it. They haven't got the luxury of sitting in a lovely theatre seat and seeing the lighting show and the whole thing. You're doing it from a small studio. So you can't we have to cut the cloth for them, because they're watching it on a screen. So when you've got €15 per ticket and there's 40% of that going to the platform that it's been broadcast on, what's the point?
I mean, it's like a minefield. It's the same, Tommy, with, we're here and we're only a new station starting up. And I had, as I said, Mick Hanley on the other day. Mick sang Past the Point of Rescue live. And he sang another one of his songs that he wrote about a mental patient here in Limerick. He was from where I'm from. And the mental hospital was behind us. And he said he used to always be, they used to be trying to get this mental patient to follow them as children. And he always had this guilt in his conscience that he tormented the mental patient. And he wrote a song about him. Now, he sang the two of those songs beautiful live. And I put them up. And next, this copyright thing came across Facebook. Now, we were with IMRO. And not Facebook, but YouTube. And so I had to write to them and say, he's singing his own song in the studio. And how are we supposed to promote Tommy Fleming and promote Mick Hanley and Johnny Doohan and Emily Conway and all of the Irish musicians that we're trying to do?
It's a minefield, and nobody's willing to stand out. Like the Minister for Arts now, Catherine, is it Catherine Martin, has now got 5 or 10 other departments thrown into one now. So it's it's Minister for Arts, Gaeltacht.
But how can you be a minister for all of those? You can't.
Well, I mean, the West has got no minister whatsoever now, anyway.
Neither has Limerick.
You know, so that's what I mean. The Western Seaboard.
The whole way up. It's a disgrace.
So it's a disgrace. You know, the government were formed, and all of a sudden, within 48 hours, there's a crisis. And now there's a bigger crisis I was watching it last night. I'm not going to get into it because I'm not political in any shape or form. But do you know what?
But this isn't a political subject. It's a social subject. It's an emotional, it's a mental subject as well, because people's mental health is affected by all of this. It isn't just creative people giving out because they can't play their music.
No, not at all.
Huge, catastrophic effects on people's livelihoods, on their mental health, on their families, on everything.
A hungry feeling came on me stealing. All the mice were squealing, hauling myself. You ready, Dublin? And the owl triangle goes jingle. Of the Royal Canal. Oh! In the early morning, the screws were bowling. Sing it up, you bowsies, and clean up yourselves. And the owl triangle goes jingle, jangle, all along the banks of the Royal Canal. Oh, the lads were sleeping. Humpy Gussie was peeping as I lay dreaming of my girl's side, and the owl triangle went jingle, jangle. In the female prison, there are 75 women, and I wished among them that I did well, and the owl triangle, come on, could go jingle.
would regard myself as one of a fairly strong, robust as in mentally robust and fairly strong, and always have been. I've always looked at life through a very half full glass.
Yeah.
And if I used to always say, if the person that would be beside me, if everything was half empty glass, I would always tell them to find a smaller glass. But I'll be honest with you, Mary, it's very worrying. There's nights I wake up in the middle of the night worrying about this, which I haven't done in many, many years, So if it's bothering me, I can't imagine how it's bothering somebody that wouldn't be that strong mentally,
This is it. People who are depending 100%, their next mortgage is depending on their on their music. And I see it with friends of mine, the strain that it's having, because their livelihoods depended on playing in pubs and clubs and festivals all over England, and you can see the strain on them. And it's
as I said it to somebody a few days ago. It's all about. Somebody said, "Well, what's the problem?" And I said, like, my point being is, for the last almost 25 years, have you seen how much tax I pay at the end of every year?
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's quite a substantial amount of money. And nobody is there to help us. Nobody. And the amount of money that this industry brings into the country, let alone what we pay out in tax, is quite scary. And that, like, you've got... And even another thing that used to always gripe me was the big artists that came in from abroad, and they never pay tax. Whereas I play Australian, I have to leave almost 50% withholding tax in the country when I'm leaving. Same with the UK and the same with America. So, and yet they can't do it here. And
yet they're the artists whose music they're constantly playing, as people who aren't from Ireland. And this is what people are complaining about. There was one musician, and she has started a big thread about the fact that they don't hear Irish artists on.
But they will say, but you do. You'll hear Westlife, and you'll hear Niall Horan, and you'll hear all of those ones.
And living abroad.
Yeah, and like, you will hear Nathan Carter, of course, on the local stations, and you'll hear Robert Mazzell, all of those. That's brilliant. But on the Today FMs, and they'll say, well, we are playing Irish music. We're playing Dermot Kennedy. We're playing the Coronas, and that's so. They're getting away with it, but it's not going across the spectrum,
No, it's not, and I think that's what
I can tell you one thing, Mary. Every time I've released an album for the last 8 years, I can't get on the Radio 1 playlist on RTE. So you tell me.
That is just appalling. That would just make me. That just makes me itch.
Oh, I stopped getting mad a long time ago. I just let it go. And at the end of the day, the public speaks for itself for me, thank God, because you've no idea what that does for me. Like, I turn up, I play the UL in Limerick, and it's full, and I've sold it out, thank God, touch wood. I've sold it out for the last nearly 15 years. The same with the Bors Gosh in Dublin, all the great venues, the Cork Opera House. And like, it's, I'm not, and I'm one of the lucky ones, but like, there's a lot of artists that rely on that airplay to be able to sell a few more tickets,
But, we're being penalized. When we have people in, because we put the shows up, and then we get copyright written across it, and we have IMRO, and you're there, and you don't know who to contact on YouTube. They're like these anonymous people that you send a blank kind of a message to, saying the artist sang this. There's just, you're doing your best. We have 2 hours every day, a show 2 hours every day for Irish artists, and it's dedicated. We have a country and ballad show. Actually, Brian, you can say hello to Brian Hinchy. He's just disgusted that I got you as a guest.
Hello, Brian. Next time we can do it. No panic.
Because Brian is a country and ballad mix, and he showed us the music he had, and nearly every second piece of music was yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, we asked him, we said, Brian, you need help. Or you need to. So last night,
Well,
I
not at all. Keep going. Keep doing it,
I
Brian. I'm
said to
not
him last
complaining.
night, if you want to come in and sit down over in the corner while I'm interviewing Tommy, why would I want to do that? He says, only torment myself because I can't be on. but but you were very, he said you were very good to his wife years ago. His wife was in a wheelchair and she
Oh,
went to your concerts, and he'll never forget how kind you were to her. She
but
died
it's not
then,
about being kind. It's just about being human. Do you know what I mean? Like
but they were big fans.
I look at, thank God I've had a great upbringing, Mary, in that my parents taught me very well. I'm the youngest of six, and kindness costs nothing, and manners cost nothing.
Tell me
And
about your upbringing. I know your parents died very tragically in 2016, wasn't it?
no, 2012, they both passed away on the same day. And my
Sure.
upbringing was very normal, was very, if I could actually be so bold as to say it was actually very idyllic, because I didn't think so at the time. Because I grew up on a farm and I'm the youngest of six. We didn't have much, but we had everything, if that makes
Mayo,
sense.
wasn't it?
Yeah, in Sligo, actually,
Right.
South Sligo. And like where I live now in Enniscrone, which is right on the beach, that was our summer holiday spot. That's why I live here now. That's the memories I have. Even every day I go for my run, I run past the playground,
Yeah,
and it's just, there isn't a day that there isn't a memory evoked there,
yeah,
But my childhood was amazing. It was very sheltered, for want of a better word, in
yeah,
a great way. We had the telly with two stations. When I was 14, we got a video recorder, which was a video player, which was brilliant. So every Saturday and Sunday, we had videos from the video shop to watch in the afternoons. But I grew up on a farm, and hating every bit of growing up on it. And the funny thing is, when I do retire, I would love to retire on a
you're
farm.
a farmer at heart, aren't you?
I'm a farmer at heart, absolutely. And I've traveled all over the world, and it still kind of brings me back to, especially when I go to Australia, I always kind of in the middle of the tour, at the end of the tour, I always take off and go up the coast and out the country. And there's a really great friend of mine, Hughie Scott Murray, and he lives out in a farm about an hour's east of Sydney. And I spent a good while there with him, and I go out fencing with him and all that kind of stuff. And
You've been putting up fences.
yeah. I mean, yeah, not
Fencing.
that kind of. Sorry, I meant fence. I mean, putting the fences up for the kangaroos that stop them getting in, stop sheep and all that. And I loved it. Do you know? But I loved that. I loved that at home as well. And I think that's where I get my absolute love of animals and wildlife.
Yeah.
I'm a vegetarian because of that, because of
So
ethical
am
reasons. I I've my two little dogs, and both rescues, and
Yeah,
they go everywhere with me.
I beat you. 3
Yeah,
rest.
yeah, but they go everywhere with me. And to answer your question, I did my parents were both very amazing people. Very kind, very decent, and very non-pushy whatsoever. They were not, they weren't like, oh, my Tommy's out singing or anything like that. There was none of that. They never even pretended. Now, don't get me wrong. Deep down, they were bursting with pride. And I used to love when I mentioned anytime we played kind of Dublin or the Cork Opera House, and if my parents were there, my mother would always insist that she'd sit in the box. But
Like the Queen.
like a very normal, very simple childhood. There was no mobile phones, there was no computers, there was none of that. And then you were allowed one phone call. It's almost like prison. On a Sunday to your cousins, and that was it. And
Yeah, I think we had the only phone in the neighborhood at one stage. We were the first to get a telephone, and all the neighbors would use our phone. Up to then, my mum used to communicate by the local telephone box. She'd ring
box down the road, yeah.
and he'd ring, or he'd ring her because he lived in England and she lived here. He couldn't get a job, but it was normal.
It was normal. And I remember it used to be really funny. The telephone box was about a 5 to 7 minute walk from us. and you'd get the word would go out that it was broken, and you could get free calls. So the queue would be a mile long, ringing England and ringing America.
I know the same thing. Or you'd get money out. You'd be able to get the money out. Somehow or other, go to press to get your money back, and someone else's money would come back with you.
I remember the old dial one. You could tap it, and you'd tap the number. It was like 1 was 1, 2, 3, and all that. But for a 0, you had to tap it at a certain speed 10 times.
Right.
We were brilliant at it.
You could get free calls. God, I forgot about that. We used to do that. But then sadly they went within a day, same day. That was
They passed away. My mum had a stroke on the 10th of March 2012, a very severe stroke. And she survived for 3 weeks subsequent to that. And then she passed away on the morning of the 30th of March. And my dad, in the meantime, had been admitted with slight heart complications. Yeah. And he passed away that evening. And there isn't a day that I'm not sad about it. There isn't a day, I was thinking through all of this. I'm, to say that I'm glad that they weren't around for it, I don't mean that in a bad way, because they would have been very fearful.
Yeah, I'm glad they weren't around for it either.
And there was nothing we would have been able to do to take their fear away. And I miss them every day. But in some ways, when I look back on it, it was very beautiful what happened, because they went together.
And they were 50 years married. They'd only celebrated
50 years married, and I always I now have come to terms with it. In the first couple of years, I didn't, because the guilt was a huge thing with me, because I used to miss one more than the other, and the guilt would kill me.
Yeah.
So it took me a long time to get to where I am today with that, to be at peace with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I know. I lost my own parents shortly after each other. Not the same as yours. My dad died suddenly at 59, and Mom lost her voice that night, and died the same day as him the following year. But she spent most of it in hospital. So I understand there's lots of guilt associated with it. But then you say, well, they wouldn't have wanted to go on probably without each other in a strange.
No, we said that as well, and I went through a lot of things. Like, I went through an awful lot of anger as well, because I was annoyed at both of them, because neither was there for me to go up home and talk to one of them about the loss of the other, if you know what I mean.
That's what I was.
And like, whereas one day they were there, and the next day there was 2 very empty chairs. And 8 years later, I still find it difficult to go to my parents' house and look at those chairs. So I don't visit as much as I probably should. It's not something, and I don't visit the grave very much.
I don't either. I just
need comfort. I talk to them very regularly. I have a picture of them on my bedstand, and I say goodnight to them every night. And I'm not religious, Mary, in any shape or form.
Spiritual.
If I pray, my prayers are to them, and they're my conversations with them,
Mm-hmm. But do you think you got your singing from your mom? Because you said in one interview that your mom was a lovely singer.
My mother was a lovely singer, and my dad was a good singer. But I think it came from both sides, because there's music, very much music on both sides. But excuse me. But there was, on my mom's side, there was an awful lot of music. All my uncles, now they weren't great singers, my uncles. They fancied themselves as singers, but they weren't. Or maybe I'm just being cruel.
Were they like what's his name? God, that comedian in Scotland. Oh God, what's his name?
Billy Connolly.
Connolly, when he go hurdy-gurdy-goo.
There was a touch of that. But the only times we used to ever hear them singing was always in a pub in a session. So there would have been a lot of pints on board. So it would never have been. It would never be the best time to hear them. However, my uncle Tony now would have been an amazing musician, and he passed away 2 years ago. So it's kind of, there's a legacy left, thank God, behind us. My first cousin Belinda is part of an amazing folk duo called Rahuli and Tiddo, and they did all the music for that BBC series, Gentleman Jack.
All right, yeah.
So Belinda's my first cousin. And then I have the O'Donnells on my dad's side, which are all traditional musicians, hugely popular. But it's, do you know what? I kind of, and then when I suppose if you've got the basis of it, you make it your own. That's how I look at it.
What I love you singing, well, everything really, but the one Christmas song I love to hear quite regularly is Christmas 1945. Isn't it 1945?
1915.
No, Christmas
1945 was the Second World War. 1915 was the First World War.
1915, yeah.
So it's I've said that was a good. That came from Jerry Lynch. I got that from in Ennis, and it's written by Owen. What's his name? Owen O'Connell. Mick McConnell's brother, who wrote "The Only Rivers Run Free." So that's kind of the same family.
I just love that song.
That's a beautiful song. It's a gorgeous song.
What would be your favorite song? Do you have a favorite? Which child you prefer?
Not at all. No, I have. It varies from time to time. I could have a favorite song for a few months, and then I could have a favorite song for a few years. So at the moment, I suppose, with the same one that I've had for many years is Bright Blue Rose.
Right, Blue Rose.
When I was doing the tour last year, one of my favorites on the tour was Bring Him Home from Les Miserables. So the songs vary. The favorites vary. So it's not like asking who's your favorite child. You can't have them all. So you have to have one favorite or one. It's the songs kind of. I suppose I've recorded so many at this point that sometimes the favorites that I haven't sang in a long time kind of crop up again.
Yeah, I loved your. Well, I only saw it on TV, but your concert in the Basilica in Knock.
Oh, that was done. That was 15 years ago.
Yeah,
it's actually 16 years ago now.
It must have been a special moment for you inside.
It was special in many ways, because it was special in bad ways as well as good ways, because the electricity went about 2 hours prior to the doors opening. Oh. So yeah, it was and it was -4 outside. So
yeah,
when you see the people in the coats in the audience, and then if you look in the background, when it does a wide shot of the audience, you'll see all the lights at the back are all off, because we hadn't the power to put all the lights behind the audience on. We only had the power from the stage, and that was running on generators. But hey, look, it was what it was, and it became a great success, thank God.
Yeah. How did you get involved in that genre of music? Did you always sing ballads and always sing?
That was always there. I suppose I grew up with it. I was very much a traditional bass, kind of ballads that my father would listen to, like the Dubliners, Bothy Band, Planksty, all that kind of stuff. And then obviously on both sides, there was very much traditional music. So that was ingrained in me all the time. And then as I got to kind of have my own likes, my own tastes, and my own way of doing things. So I kind of branched out into more contemporary side of it, which kind of encompassed musical theatre as well. So that's where it all went. That's where I cast the net a bit wider than normal.
Yeah, I see your voice very suitable as well for the musical theatre, the Lloyd Webber type shows.
It's a completely different discipline, but I enjoy it just as much. Do you know what I mean? I really enjoy it just as much.
Yeah, because that one, Bring Him Home, that really makes your voice. Yeah, you've got a high range.
Yeah, it takes a lot of control, and it takes a lot of practice, I suppose. You can't just pick it out of nowhere and sing it. You have to practice it a good bit. but you know, it's an enjoyable thing they're all very enjoyable to sing, and just very it kind of brings you to a different place, and it's not the same style of music either, you know.
No. And I suppose, you know, if you were down the line, I suppose, to retire, I don't see you retiring. I think it's
I might have to.
the day that's in it. But if you were to retire, what do you think you would spend your time doing? You'd obviously be listening to music.
If I was to retire, what would I spend my time doing?
Tell me your
Giving out about everybody else. Because I wasn't doing it. No, I don't know is the honest answer. I can never say what's life going to be like in a year's time. What's life going to be? Please God, we're still here. I don't know is the honest answer. I still would keep my hand in there. I still would tour a little bit. I still would write music. I still would be involved somehow. Maybe not just as much.
Where do you see the music industry? Do you see? I think you started off very, very contemplative, really, about the situation at the moment. But do you see?
I've seen a lot of changes over the last 25 years in the industry. Be it the biggest one, obviously, was the internet, which completely wiped out physical sales of CDs and albums. And this is the biggest, if you want to call it, for want of a better word, this is probably the biggest crisis we have ever faced. And the problem in this crisis is the fact that there is nobody throwing us a lifeline. Nobody. You know, like the internet wiped record shops 15, 18 years ago. And now we've got this. And this is far bigger. Everybody is affected by this across the board. It's not just with the record industry, it was people that made the records. And then, so therefore you had the people that in studios, you had people that side of it was affected. However, this time, everybody's affected, from the man that sells the tickets to the man that puts the sound equipment up, to all the way down, all the way up, if you want, to the person that stands on the stage, and that is me or any other artist. And then, you know, I'm responsible for like up to 15 musicians, and they're going to lose their livelihoods if I don't get back. So and then you have managers, you have the manager staff, you have all of that. So the knock-on effect is profoundly huge.
It must be very stressful. It must really be stressful. I mean, I'm an academic, sort of, you know. I mean, I haven't worked either, and you know, I was part-time. I was covering for somebody for the term, and it just closed a couple of days with 5 weeks to go, and all of the students ended up having to do their final everything online, and it was just stressful. But I wasn't working for myself.
It's stressful in the sense that there's an added frustration with the stress, because there's an uncertainty, it's unknown, and there's nobody giving us answers. There's nobody telling us when a theatre can open, be it quarter capacity, half capacity, and yeah, I do understand that if a vaccine comes on board, that it could return to normal very quickly. But as I said earlier, when you see scenes like Dame Lane in Dublin and Temple Bar thronged with people sitting on the curb, right, no social distancing whatsoever, and they're all having a drink and socialising, and yet a theatre that I have performed in many, many times is still in darkness 100 meters up the road from them, and there's no. That's the frustration in the whole thing, and that's the annoyance, and there's nobody can give us an answer. If I put every minister in front of me tomorrow morning and ask them the question, I guarantee they can't give me an answer.
And there was a photograph or a video there on YouTube the other day on Facebook, and it was in Waterford, apparently, 60 youngsters coming out of a house. bringing them out, and about 60 of them coming out. You're thinking,
Look, if I was their age at that time, I probably would have done the same thing.
oh,
You know what I mean?
absolutely. I'm not saying they're wrong to do it. I'm
That.
saying, why can't they open a concert?
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's the question, and that's nobody seems to be able to give us an answer.
I mean, are we supposed to mollycoddle ourselves and just? I mean, it's gone to the stage now where you stand in a queue and you see people moving this way or that way onto little dots on the floor, and you're thinking, oh, get a life. Do you know? I mean, you kind of feel like people are actually, trying to keep their distance, and they are trying to keep their distance. But you could get paranoid as well about the fact that
paranoid. But I mean, I think, as I said, the frustration lies in all of the contradictions that are happening, and it's not even a juxtaposition in something. It's what it is like you've got flights going to Lanzarote or wherever they're going, 250 people on a plane, jam-packed, and they can fly as long as they have masks on them, but they cannot put them into a theatre for 2 hours with masks on them. So explain that one to me.
About 2 months ago, 80 flights, the head of the aviation authority said that day 84 flights had come in to Dublin Airport, and only about less than a third, less than a third of them were cargo. The rest
Yeah.
Now, even the berry pickers that came in, none of them were Irish. The Irish were here after being quarantined, and they weren't offered the jobs, and they have gone through their quarantine, and you're saying, how can people be allowed in, healthy, and then they have to do the quarantine when there's people here who've already done quarantine?
What you see is the tail wagging the dog here, in the fact that you've got one is saying, no, you don't go away, don't go leave the country, it's not safe, and then the aviation authorities are pushing for it to be in hotels abroad, and that's the advice that seems to be taken, not the medical advice, not the proper advice. But is there nobody in charge here that can say, no, that's not going to happen?
And can you, as musicians, not get together and set up some kind of forum, if you like, have some sort of convention, online convention, Zoom online convention, or whatever, or have a convention?
I'm sure we could.
About going to the government and challenging the government on this.
Well, I mean, I've approached many of them, but the problem you run into is, off you go, basically, for me to do it and see how it goes. So I think we're all on our own. There's nobody there's no committee, there's no board, there's no, like, the Arts Council just seem to have defected completely from us. IMRO, not worth, they're about as useful now as a chocolate teapot. But there's nobody there to stand in front and fight the fight for us.
I mean, we were told IMRO dealt with the musician and PPI dealt with the music, but there's nobody there. If you wanted to actually, just say you wanted to use a video that you saw on YouTube to promote Tommy Fleming, there's nobody there to allow you to use that video, because even though you have the rights to the music and you have the rights to Tommy Fleming's as a musician, you've got your rights all sorted out. Somebody else could have uploaded that video of Tommy Fleming onto YouTube from a concert, and there's nobody dealing with Tommy Fleming as a performer and his performance rights that we can seem to see, and they don't seem to want to. I mean, I'm involved, say, in the Irish dancing industry, and I run a dance competition for the last 18 years. We were supposed to be running ours. It's a 2-day event. I run it in September. We're not going to be able to run it now because they wanted us to try and let them know if we were going to try and run it and be the first group to run it this year. We can't take that chance. The hall that I used to run it in, they won't allow us in anymore. The insurance probably won't insure us. And the children aren't getting to dance or perform, and the schools can't open. It's just, I understand. You know, I understand from that point of view. We don't know what to do. I'll have to ring now tomorrow and say, look, I just can't run it because I can't take the chance that I could lose my shirt.
Yeah, but look, I mean, the way I look at it from here on in is that I think we just sit back and kind of maybe give it time and see if there's going to be answers or there's going to be any direction or not so much direction, but even any reassurance on where we lie and what our prospects of returning to work are.
Mm.
You know, and I mean, who knows? You know, that's all we can do is hope.
All we can do, yes, indeed, all we can do is hope. Lord, I just saw that there. It's where he actually heard me now, because the person I'm supposed to ring to confirm that I'm not going to run the event. I just saw there a text from, but. Well, Tommy, listen, thank you so much for actually talking to me today.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.
It has been an absolute pleasure, rather than, I suppose, talking about concerts and upcoming concerts and concerts that you've done in the past. And the focus was very much, as it is with everybody, on COVID-19 and the impact it had on musicians and singers and performers and artists.
You know, as I said in the beginning, it was fine, not fine, but you kind of accepted it because everybody was in the same boat. But all of a sudden, that boat, the people, there's a lot of areas like hairdressing, all of those have been helped, whereas we're just left out to sea, and nobody seems to be giving us answers. Nobody seems to be giving us any reassurance or any direction or any news on where we should go or how it's going to happen.
And I think I think what has to be considered is that the Ministry for Arts and Culture, or whatever it is now, actually, there needs to be somebody dealing primarily with the creative arts. You know. Then
it does, but look at. The new government are very obviously trying to find their own feet, and I don't know by this time next month how many more crises will they have, and scandals will be thrown at them. I've no idea. At this point, you just sit and kind of wait and see what happens.
And let's hope that it's actually going to be more positive in the weeks to come. It certainly can't be any worse.
Well, look, I hope this time next year we'll be talking again and it'll be all over and we'll all be back on the road and everything will be hunky-dory.
And you'll be back to being Tommy Fleming again.
I'm still Tommy. That's never changed and never will.
The star that you are. That actually rhymes.
I don't know about that now. But I just do my job and I enjoy it. That's how it is.
And long may you do that, honestly, Tommy, because you do give people a lot of pleasure listening to your music. And you've seen with your Jeep singing, your Jeep performances, they're amazing. There's a great little idea. I know, it's, I suppose, the next thing now you'll have to do is start bringing somebody else, do a James Corden in it completely.
Oh, that'd be too much hassle.
The Irish James Corden, far better.
Yeah. Thanks a million, Mary, for your time, and we'll check back in again sometime soon.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Tommy.
Not at all. Thank you.
Go on, lad.
I think you know this song. You know the chorus. And I really want you to sing it with me. Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears while we also sorrow with a poor. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. There's a song, it sighs of the weary. Hard times come again no more. we see mirth and beauty and music bright and gay, their frail forms fading at the door. Though their voices are silent, their pleading looks will say, oh, hard times will come again no more. Come on! There's a song that sighs of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. There's a song that sighs of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. There's a song that sighs of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Oh, hard times come again. No